Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Particle Accelerator Podcast, where we talk to future thinking business leaders about how to accelerate their team and grow their business. I'm here today with Bradley. Bradley, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey, Benjamin. My name is Bradley Riley, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I'm here in Marina Del Rey on a 50-foot vintage yacht that I've been restoring for about 5 years. I've been a human rights activist and a media activist for more than 20 years, which has been a lot in the nonprofit space, engaging with businesses. And most recently, I've launched a business that's engaging businesses with nonprofits. So I've flipped that around a little bit. But I'm mainly known for my past music and my media and documentary work.
Awesome. Really cool. I'm excited to talk to you today. The way that I would love to get to know you is, what was your first job? Like for me, it was a paper route, but how did you make your first dollar as a human?
Yeah, my first dollars came from my grandpa, who was in construction, who would hire me to move a pile of dirt for money when I was 12. My first big teen job was at Mazio Pizza right outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Claremore, Oklahoma. And I started out as the old 15-year-old busboy and migrated into whipping pizzas up for Claremore folks, and then finished my high school career as a checker at the warehouse market.
Nice. I definitely had my run at some food service when I was a teenager, and pizza, when I was in college, throwing pizza was like walk down the street and get a job tomorrow. You could throw pizza and you wanted to help out on that schedule. Just find a local joint and say, hey, I want to help
That's right.
you work. Yeah, that's really cool. What toy or hobby did you have as a kid that inspired what you do career-wise today?
Yeah, I had always been around music growing up. Definitely the toy that I had in my youth space was centered around music. But in my home, my mom and my dad, they had pianos. Music was playing all the time. By the time I was a young kid, I was banging around on instruments. But I finally picked up a saxophone and found out that I was pretty good at jazz and blues saxophone. Went through the all-state system in Oklahoma and then ended up becoming a professional musician, playing jazz saxophone, producing, and using that as a way to pay the bills in my 20s.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, it was like I played the double bass and the cello first in fifth grade, and then in high school, the double bass. I even owned a upright full acoustic and got into jazz. Could do like the coffee shop swing and bass deal, and then I picked up the guitar because it was a little bit better for the ladies. And my first guitar was like a Fender acoustic, just an acoustic, no pickups or anything. It had the worst action ever, but it built up my hand strength. Where when I got a real guitar, like a good guitar, I was like, this is where it's at. This is easy.
Yeah, that's great.
What was your favorite and least favorite course in school?
Least favorite probably always had to do with math. The irony is my mom was a math teacher. My favorite stuff centered around writing and any kind of literature. I also loved sociology.
What's a quote from a famous person that lives in your mind rent free?
Oh, a famous person. I have a lot of fun quotes, but my grandpa used to always say the longest path between 2 points is a shortcut. And he would unpack that for you in all of his different ways and perspectives.
Yeah, it's not worth doing unless you do it right, kind of thing.
You'll often undo what you did and have to go back around anyway.
I've been noticing that in different business leaders. I'll see some business leaders that are really analytical and data oriented. I kind of align with them. So it takes me a long time to make a decision. The Steve Jobs autobiography said that he took forever. His wife said he took forever to decide on the couch, and he was super analytical about that. And then the washing machine, washer and dryer, he was looking for the best product on the market for years before he pulled the thing. And then I find there's a couple of really cool entrepreneurs that, man, they move fast and break things. They're like one of my buddies, Skylar Lewis, he owns an events company. One week I go there and the walls are one way, and I went back a couple other weeks. Yeah, I didn't like it that way. So I just changed it. He'll tear down walls and rebuild them again, learning what the perfect floor plan is. For the analytical guys, that's crazy, but he moves so quick that he can afford to take 2 or 3 attempts at something. And yeah, there's probably a little refactoring cost in there, but I'm not sure there's one that's better than the other. I just really like that idea that there's the piano makers and the frame builders. When you're building the frame of a house and you hit a nail, you just bend it over and put in another nail. When you're building a piano, everything has to be just, and I don't know that either of those perspectives are wrong, unless of course you are building your back deck and you're trying to be super precise and you never finish it.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go with that one, but I feel it definitely is about the context. I don't love to go in and break things, but I do like to disrupt and shake it up. I move slow, but then when it's time to act, then I can move fast on things. But definitely want to make sure that when I jump in, I'm jumping into the right space.
Yeah, you want to be well informed. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think the greatest invention has been in the last 300 years?
Wow. There are so many things, right, in the medical side that has made us live longer. And there are so many things that have made our lives more enjoyable. There are so many things that have pulled us together as a global group of citizens and made a very big world a very small place. But yeah, I would have to say in my era, in looking back, the internet has been a mind-blowing, life-changing scenario for the whole planet. And it's hard for us to think about going from a horse to a car or having industrial developments that have taken place, making things and doing things easier. But for me, as a guy who is focused on social connectivity, making the world a smaller place, travel and getting to know all the humans on this planet, all the tools developed for that are probably down my alley of favorite things that have been invented. Thanks, Al Gore.
Yeah. What tech trend significantly impacted your industry and how has your company responded?
Yeah, I've been in the nonprofit space for a lot of years, partnering with for-profit companies. My objective has always been to empower people in strategic sectors to make a difference in the sector and space that they work and how that can play out. What's changed is I'm a Gen X kid. I used to tour around and spend 3 hours trying to find a venue to play in Chicago. And now Google takes me right there. The same thing has happened with media. The same thing has happened with projects that are meant to catalyze groups of people. The idea that I've watched us go from no internet to what I did back in the 80s and 90s, and then to see the ability for us to mobilize information and connect people, you have to stay up with that. Something that I used to do was just produce media and it would distribute in any way possible. But ultimately, now that I have technology, I can channel everything I do through my app and I have my own platform to connect. And so things are on my terms in the way that I'm able to deliver content to people versus sending it out there and never knowing what it's doing and never knowing how it's impacting folks. A lot of what we try to do is use messaging and storytelling and media and the vision of a company and the vision of a cause and connect the people around it. And so that connectivity is imperative for us to be successful. So our app is probably the thing we've had to develop that has made us adapt.
Yeah, that's cool. Tell me a little more about that. When you go to a nonprofit, you're trying to help the nonprofit with their brand message, help the nonprofit with their cause. And then you're trying to do a B2B where you get corporations involved, their employees involved in aligning with that cause.
Yeah, in the past, in my nonprofit documentary space, we would adopt a cause. I would rally the key players around it to make that project successful. In one situation, we had a Mexican woman by the name of Norma Vestiz, she's a human trafficking survivor. She had been kidnapped in Mexico by the cartel and was forced into prostitution all the way into Japan. She was able to escape through the help of some people who intervened. She ended up marrying a Canadian guy. She became a Canadian citizen. Their marriage didn't last long, but they had 2 kids. So she's a single mom in her mid-30s. Some of the trauma of her past showing up negatively in her, and she decides she has to do something about it. So she went out on a run and realized she had the gift of Forrest Gump. And within 6 months, at 35 plus years old, she qualified for the Boston Marathon. She then became a world-class ultra runner. She was on the cover of magazines. Oprah featured her, and her people reached out to me and said, hey, Norma wants to tell her story. She's this great accomplished athlete, but she wants to tell the story of what motivates her. In our situation was, okay, let's rally behind what this message is. And what matters to her was the exploitation of kids and the exploitation of children. So then it becomes our job to go, who are the key players out there? Who are nonprofits that we can align with, who could support this, who show best practices and are making great impact? Who are the leverage folks out there that can make big things happen between two countries? And that involved us getting the United Nations involved. It involved us getting US State Department and embassies involved and the Mexican federal government. We had to rally all these people behind Norma because she wanted to break the record for the longest triathlon in human history. So she ended up swimming 122 miles in the Caribbean Ocean outside of Cancun. She biked from Cancun to Mexico City to Texas to Georgia. And then she ran from Georgia to Washington, D.C. and finished at the Washington Mall. It was a little over 10 years ago.
Wow.
So she more than tripled the Guinness World Record for the longest triathlon in human history. And so pulling our crew together meant pulling all of this extra amount of help and support to make that possible. You can imagine the accommodations, the crew members driving down Mexican highways through Mexico City, all the way up into Texas, security, everything that needed to happen. We had to rally behind her and pull people together. That meant what corporate sponsors were out there that aligned with what she was up to, and how do we get funds from those folks, and what entities are out there that need to give us permission, and what organizations are out there that need to help us cross the border. So all of those things come together to coalesce to make a project happen, and then to engage people at all levels. The cool part of that is that once that film came out, it toured film festivals and did its thing in that space. But then it also became a way for us to leverage businesses in their HR training. It allowed us to get in schools with a curriculum for youth and for kids. And all of that happened from not just Norma being able to do the project, which was phenomenal, but also all of the businesses and corporations that had to rally behind that to make that happen, making the impact that we wanted to make with it. So in our situation, we find interesting projects and interesting people and interesting conversations that are aligning with the cause that we want to impact. And then we pull together the nonprofit and the corporations to work together on making that happen. What we found, though, is that employees want to work for companies who give back. Employees want to work for companies who are philanthropic. Employees want to work for companies that have an empathy-driven culture to them. And so it's not just making an impact on the cause that everybody cares about. It's also helping business be better, and it's helping leadership be stronger. And so we've seen great success with all of that.
Yeah, it's cool. Most businesses want the charitable tax shelter, right? They get to control the way that they contribute rather than sending it to the federal government and letting them control how they contribute.
And we also see retention. There's some great studies that show the turnover rate for employees dramatically decreases when a company is driving their culture with empathy and philanthropy.
Yeah. What role does technology play in your, I'm a technical co-founder. I've started 5 businesses from start to finish. I guess you could call me a startup guy, but usually I'm in the technology seat. I'm the one who builds the team, that writes the software, that transacts the money, right? In most of the businesses I've been in, software was the product. What role does technology play in that? How do you leverage that? Are you storing a bunch of data about these causes? Just tell me, what's the role of technology in this endeavor?
Yeah, in our for-profit business that we've launched is called Empathy Exchange. And that's all about connecting people, connecting companies and organizations to the causes they care about. From a technology standpoint, media and tech go hand in hand. When we're out there producing or having a conversation in a podcast or making a documentary style project happen, we need a way to deliver that. And so for us, the app has become the way for that to happen. We can control the conversation. We can capture the conversation. We can distribute the media in a way that we want. We can have that media go outside of that app and it can land in whatever space out there. But for us, the app is our vehicle to deliver our message. Plus, it gives us the ability to have data, and we can run AI sentiment on comments and give a sentiment report to a company that we're working with to show a positive impact on their employees. We can do your traditional data of how much time people spent watching this particular piece of media. We can do polls on that app where we can see if we're moving the needle in certain ways. We can also gather information from the audience to see what they're interested in so that we can produce content in the future that they want to digest. Technology gives us the ability to understand the landscape and the audience in front of us. It gives us the ability to also distribute that content to the people that we want to reach. So yeah, technology has become an indispensable part of how we communicate. From a nonprofit standpoint, there's a lot of ways that we're exploring technology. We have the same idea for an app to be able to distribute content to kids and people around the world who may not have access to content, but have a smartphone, getting access into people's pockets through their phones and giving them that information. That's priceless. There's no words to be able to describe how amazing that is. And we also have the ability to use GPS tracking. So if there's a missing kids report, there are different ways that we can interact and connect through finding missing children. There's also technology being used in our nonprofit space to empower young people to stay safe from human trafficking and exploitation. We use technology as a way to get to whatever audience we're trying to reach.
Is it a downloadable app, or is most of the functionality also available online?
Everything we do is on our app now. If you go to Empathy Exchange in either of the app stores, you'll be able to download us and jump right in. The app is free for people to consume, and we sell subscriptions and private custom channels to companies to monetize the business. The app is open for everyone to join the conversation.
What technology are you looking forward to or leveraging to drive your business growth? I understand you have all these things going on when it comes to running your business, having the app, having a way to interact with your brand, but what are you really looking at to help you drive business growth and to get the outcomes that you're looking for in the future?
We're focused on people who already have a cause that they wish they were having a greater impact. We want to enhance that vision and grow that vision. And we want to engage more of their employees and members of their organization in that vision, connect the nonprofit that's out there so they don't feel siloed out. We have a company right now sponsoring a program that's training first responders, and they wanted their employees to really feel the connection to the nonprofit effort that they had out there. I think maybe 2 years in a row from the foundation of the company, given $25,000 to the company or to the nonprofit, to the cause, but they decided that they were going to back off because they weren't feeling like it was impacting their employee base the way they wanted it to. And then it's when we get a call that says, hang on, so what if we add this component to what you're already trying to accomplish? And suddenly we can showcase the voices of the nonprofit that you are impacting. We can showcase the volunteer day that your employees were there making an impact with that nonprofit. And they can share their side of the story and how important that was. We can showcase leadership from the company who says, this is something that is important to us. And it's so great to see our community all connecting together. So in that case, we go in, we're about to pull out of this impact campaign, and we were able to come in and help them continue making that impact, but we're going to help them have that takeaway with their employees. Any company that is wanting to give back. So out here in the LA fires, you had a lot of companies who wanted to get behind all of the responses to the fires, but they didn't really have a way to do it other than just make a donation. And so we can come in and bridge the gap between the company and the cause. And we can do that in real time and make that happen in a current situation, but we can also do it in a long-term plan where it's a multi-year vision. We can partner with foundations of companies who are already out there saying, hey, we're a foundation. We're already making a difference as a company, but their employees still aren't connected to that. We can come in and help that foundation grow what they're doing.
So it's reminding me, two of my businesses were verticalized ad networks. Like in travel, it was destination guide publishers, folks writing about different destinations. And then on the other side, there's all the travel brands. By being in the center of the two-sided marketplace, we were able to do really cool things quickly because we already had the eyeballs in front of us through these publisher sites. It sounds like that's what you've done is you're already connected with all the corporations and their employees who are the eyeballs. And then you're giving them different causes by already having that connectivity. When a new cause comes up, it's just, hey, corporation, can I show this to all of your employees? And that mechanism is already in place.
A company's looking for a cause to get behind, but oftentimes the leadership is very passionate about a cause. They're running a business and they would like to make the impact, but they don't have the capacity to do that. In that situation, it's going to executive leaderships at companies saying, what is this vision? What do you want to be able to impact, and who do you want to be able to impact? We can help develop that either from scratch or enhance what they.
We had an employee, a really awesome employee, pass away from heart failure a few years back. We've always had this fundraising campaign. His name was Bear, like Bear's Buddies. But to have some partnership in managing that, these are the causes, and a little more, we tend to go to the big brand name nonprofits.
Yeah.
But to have a little more partner that could give you a little more control over that and a little more connectivity, help you, like at my all hands meetings, I don't have a very multimedia presentation to share with the employees about how cool these causes are.
That's
Sounds
right.
like that's something that you can help with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that media can channel through that custom channel we built for the company, or at a meeting that they want to just hit play on stuff that we've created. They can pull that content right out of their channel and use it however they want.
What do you think some of the big gaps are between your ambitions and the realities of today? What do you feel like is holding you back?
We've been launching this company for the last 2 years, and we just went live at the first of this year. So we're fresh. The climate that is out there, there's clearly some trepidation on expanding business. People, I think, even if they have budget and funding for that, are in a current stage where everyone's hitting a little bit of a pause on what's happening with tariffs and what's happening with expenses that are going to be undefined in the future. And that has been a real challenge. We have a lot of connections with people that were in the hopper for several months, and you can see their enthusiasm start to shift and change and not be as strong as it was before the elections, regardless of political affiliation. That's the reality of where we're at. And so not just saying this is an enhancement for your company, but us saying this can be an indispensable part of your success. Convincing the gatekeepers at companies to do that now is a challenge. And what our focus is on a time like this, don't let your causes go on pause. We want to step in and say, we can take that pressure off your plate. You can still make that impact. You can still be connected. And so viewing that as something that will help them continue in their success versus an add-on to something that they might want in the future has been a challenge for our messaging. And so we've been adapting and adjusting to that.
Yeah, I've seen something happen in that stage with a lot of early stage companies. And one is unfortunate. A lot of times in the beginning, we're getting the messaging right. And when the message is compelling, there's this abundance mindset. There are plenty of opportunities. I just have to figure out how to explain and communicate. It's my responsibility to be understood. But I've seen a shift after some fatigue in the market. Maybe it is objectively a difficult market to crack, but I have seen a shift in some entrepreneurs where it shifts to like, my audience just doesn't understand me and they never will. Or there's a victim mindset and a scarcity mindset that creeps in. Those entrepreneurs inevitably don't make it. They just go, I guess I picked the wrong business model, or I guess I picked the wrong audience. And I think that's unfortunate. Honestly, believe that there's always a way to explain it in an irresistible fashion.
Yeah.
It's finding what is that emotional motivation that really triggers like, okay, this is a good idea. This is the right thing to do in your space. We need to do this. That's a very common challenge that I've walked a lot of people through.
Yeah.
Getting that messaging right, A/B testing, trying it, and knowing that there's plenty of fish in the sea. And how many of them do you really need to catch to be successful?
Not that many, but for us, we can be sustainable with, not a lot of clients. So it is very doable. And our whole team knows that and feels that. We've got my COO is a longtime executive for AT&T, and our sales guy has been an NCAA athlete. And so he's tenacious. I'm the creative side of this. We've got the three of us who are working together on our leadership team. There are definitely times I need wind in my sails, and they're reminding me of things that you just said, Benjamin. And that's always helpful. I was in the nonprofit space for many years. So not knowing how we're going to make something happen, not knowing how it was going to work was a daily thing in our life, but we stayed in the game and it always worked out.
Yeah. I think that's great. The nonprofit spaces, you're doing something worthy of the effort. We love this. When we've served nonprofit clients, we've always enjoyed the work in a different kind of way. We're doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
You just connected with our purpose, and that altruism kicks in and feel good about what you're doing.
I had an accountant the other day who does work at a company that is giving back and said, every day that I'm pushing that pencil, I know I'm making a difference. And somehow that connection was really there and is obviously showing up for his role at the company.
That's awesome. What do you think your biggest challenges are now or will be as you grow?
We've worked really hard to keep things simple. The challenges have been just dialing it back and finding our real simple essence of who we are and offering that, and not drifting from that, but really just staying focused on that. I'm a creative, so I like to build things and add bells and whistles. A lot of the discipline might be coming my way to just focus that. But what we're doing and our mission is bringing us joy. And it's something that, yes, we want to monetize, but for every client we have, that means there's a cause that we're impacting. And so that's really motivating all of us. When you partner with a company on a project, then there's a challenge to get that connectivity to take place. And those challenges aren't necessarily problem solving in a bad way, but problem solving in a good way. And that's really the culture of business that I want to be a part of. I've done this long enough to know what I'm not good at and what I don't want to do. The rest, I'm an amateur for life and curious. And there's a few things that I have out there that I put into the mix as well. Ultimately, I want to do something that we can manage that's not going to overwhelm us as a team, that's going to bring joy to us, but is going to also bring that to the companies that are our clients and the causes that are impacted by that. So I don't have a lot of trepidation on any of that for my future. What I really want to do is get to work and scale what we are working on in a way that's fun for our future employees too, who work for
the
us.
challenge of daily excellence is just the challenge of daily excellence. Whenever we're doing a big change for a company, we know there's going to be a certain kind of feedback that I call the feedback of the essence of change. Hey, somebody's moving my cheese. I don't like this change. I'm not sure I know what's expected throughout this change. And then there's some feedback that says, oh yeah, we didn't communicate well enough, or we didn't handle the efficiency of the change. This idea of the difference between the essence and the efficiency. I found you could execute a change management process or affect disruption, and you could be super efficient. And there's still this, but you're disrupting, but you're changing. And so you get this kind of negative feedback, but really just because humans don't love to be disrupted or to change, it's almost like you're doing it right when you get that kind of feedback, because we are change agents. We're making you do something different. And so if you're giving us that kind of feedback, then we're almost doing it right. But it's very difficult to distinguish between those two because human beings articulate in the same tone, but holding those two ideas as equal. Is this the essence of change or is this the efficiency?
I like how you said that. I tend to use that word myself. I pair two words together, essence and rhythm. It's so much a 5-year plan, and here are the benchmarks to reach the 5-year plan. In my mind, it's what is the essence of our why and what we're doing, and let's don't lose that. And then let's let our work emerge from that space. That shows up in the rhythm of our week, month, and the year. If you lose that, you're focused on things that don't bring you joy.
Yeah, that's really cool. I also loved the vulnerability there. EOS is very clear when they talk about the visionary, and the integrator, and that these are two very important roles at the top of the company. I would have never described myself as a visionary. Most of my successful ventures, I've attached to the visionary. I've been more of the integrator role attached to the visionary. And I'm like a running back, finding the crack and going after it. They're creating the game plan, the essence, if you will, and then I'm hitting the rhythm. And so as I really took the reins of my own company, I'm doing these visionary things. I'm like, this is weird. Like I'm all of a sudden the one that's coming up with these bright ideas and then have to be really careful about how I articulate those, because some people will experience those as new marching orders. I can blow up the whole company by saying, hey, I have this great idea. This is what I want to do, and motivating people in a disruptive way. Your vulnerability just said, hey, I could see that you have that power too, that you can just get everybody going in a different direction with a couple of sentences. I love that you're talking about really honing in, still having a vision, but that's kind of hard because we are the visionary. As uncomfortable as that makes me feel to say I'm the visionary, I am the one trying to stay a couple of steps ahead, and I could easily pull an idea that's maybe right for 90 days from now, and I could pull that into current time and be very thrashy.
Yep. I hear you loud and clear on that, Benjamin. But yeah, I do feel like there's some safety in leading with a team together because it's not just coming from my essence. Now it's our collective essence. It's an expression coming from all of us as a team, which each of our members are really strong at. That's going to manifest itself in our partnership as it emerges and evolves.
That strong integrator role will be like, okay, that's a great idea. Let's plan that and put that where it goes. And so that relationship between visionary and integrator is just so essential. And oftentimes it's not just a single integrator, it's a team of people. Do you guys have a planning methodology that you leverage, like OKRs or EOS? In your experience, where do you see your company going in terms of a framework that you use for planning your roadmaps and strategy?
Yeah, our COO, this is everything he lives and breathes. Fortunately, he has pulled all of that off my plate. We have these really great projection performas that are out there of different scenarios and models. And we've looked through different monetization models. We have different examples of those. Those have adapted and evolved based on real-time feedback and boots on the ground. So much of that has come from my team members. I have an approach and a methodology to how I do a project, and being able to pair that with this back end framework that holds us as a company together, and then to be able to put my framework of a project in on that. It's like we're moving down the path and we've got this flywheel going at the same time. I could not do it without him.
What lessons have you learned from initiatives that have failed to deliver expected value? I love to ask if there's been sometimes when I ask this question, one of my guests was doing a big water pump replacement and he just flooded a thing and had to get all that pumped out and recover. And he just had all these things that he had learned from that failure that really had shaped who he was and how he operated today. Is there something like a good lessons learned or something that you could reflect on?
Yes. I feel like in my early days, I was build it and he will come, the old field of dreams idea. And that's happened a lot and that's been successful in many cases, but then there's been the times that it hasn't been successful. And I think I've adapted how I view that. I still believe that if you create something that is beautiful and genuine, an audience will form around that. And you don't have to worry about your audience or focus on your audience in that sense. But at the same time, if you're building something that people don't want or need, that's not a business. That's probably a hobby. I've done a few projects where I put a lot of people's effort and time into it, and then it didn't have the impact we wanted. Maybe we had a couple missing components and we learned that the hard way. I think that's experience, surrounding yourself with people who can help you see the gaps and see the pit holes.
What would you say to people who are starting their career? Is there any advice you could give to the young blood?
For sure. Again, in my early days, I'd say follow your passion. If you work your passion, you don't work a day in your life, all those kinds of things. I still believe that. What I really believe is just finding something that you're good at and that can make you happy. If that means you're busting ass at a job that you are enjoying, but it's not your total passion, but you're good at it, making great money, then that becomes a catalyst for your passion. You can converge into your passion as time goes on. Finding a way to take that stress off you when you're starting out, where you can pay the bills and you're not depressed when you go home at night, that's a good thing. And then start to evolve and grow, because the same way when you went through college, you didn't know what you wanted. And then it changed. If you'd known when you were a senior what you knew when you were a freshman, you probably had a different major. That's so much of our stories. And I feel like the same thing as we're moving into our 20s. There's so much to explore. There's a discovery zone that, you're going to land in. When you land in it, it's going to be a catapult that takes you forward with this beautiful inertia of you giving your time to explore and understand yourself. But ultimately, if you can follow your passion and you can make money doing your passion, then full throttle, hit the gas pedal.
Yeah. And I would add two things to that. One, I would add that pivoting is costly. So if you are down a road and you're like, hey, I enjoy this, I have a passion for it, but it's really hard. And then you pivot because you think another path is easier. That's an illusion. And that's really costly. I just look at the pivots were always a start over. It's like you've swam so far across the lake and you're almost to the other side, but it's hard and you're tired. So you swim back, like just keep going and you'll eventually reach the other side and get into success. And then I would also add that screw what other people think, man. My brother has a passion for cooking. He's a chef, a degreed culinary professional, probably always be at the median income for the community that he chooses to live in. I used to be all up in his business, wanting more success for him or wanting him to make more money or whatever that was. But people will just get up in your business. I realized that he is passionate. He's got a great job at a really cool steakhouse here that's doing cool things. They shift their menu and he loves that they're seasonal. So they change the menu often. He enjoys it and he's happy doing that. I've since reprogrammed that in my mind and now I'm not in his business anymore. I'm actually happy for him that he's found out what he wants, but who cares what other people think if you're doing something?
That's right.
How much money you make, it'll shift if you stick with it.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. If people like what you've had to share today, how would you like them to connect with you?
I just invite everyone to go download the app and join the conversation. There's a ton of content and interviews with people who will just inspire you, business leaders making a difference, sharing their stories and examples. So not only will you get inspired by what they're doing, it'll inspire you to do something yourself. If you want to learn what we're up to, you can go to the website, empathyexchange.com, and click any button to say hi that says contact us.
Cool. Yeah. Download that app, Empathy Exchange, right after this. We'll make sure that app is linked in the show notes. We're so excited to hear what you're doing. This has been great. I appreciate your time and sharing this time with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thanks for adding your voice to others and showcasing awesome work out there. I appreciate you including me in on that, man.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.